Hello, everybody. Welcome. Here we are. I'm sorry I can't be with you today, but don't worry. We're still going to learn Governomics. Okay. So, we've been talking a lot about the economy and then we switched to government. So, today, for the first time, we're going to mix the two together. And so, specifically, we're going to be talking about the role that we think the government and individuals should have in our economic system, which we call a free enterprise economic system. It's like the best of both worlds. It's really good. So what you want to do first is, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the substitute teacher should give you a small handout. And if they haven't given you a small handout, you need to very politely go up to them and say, "Excuse me, I think we need a handout. May we please have it?" And then they will give you a piece of paper that looks like this. What this thing is all about is on the front, it's a survey. And the survey is trying to get an opinion from you. It's gauging, okay, how much capitalism or socialism do you think we should have in our economy? Because we've learned by now that there's a little bit too much craziness in each of these two systems if we leave them all alone by themselves. You know, in capitalism, you get all this freedom and choice, which is great, but you also get some risk and danger, and there's no government involvement, so the workers become oppressed. And Adam Smith was like, he was cool with that, but Karl Marx wasn't. And so Karl Marx talks about socialism, where the workers need to have rights and the government should be in control. But remember, there's sometimes too much control and not enough freedom in socialism. So that's not a perfect system either. And so we're left with the question of, where should we be in this blending of these two systems? We call this a mixed economy. So what I want you to do right now is to take this, pause the video, and answer the questions on the front, add up your numbers, and then jot down your total score in this box. Again, you're going to pause the video right now. Go ahead and pause it. Okay, welcome back. Hopefully you paused it. Otherwise, that would be weird. So here's the thing. So you've got a number. Let me explain what your number represents. You've got, so these 10 statements, and between 0 and 10, how much do you agree or disagree with them? Here's what it means. The higher the score you get, the more socialist you are. I'll say that again. The higher the score you get here, up to 100 is the maximum, the more socialist you are, meaning you would prefer to have an economy that has a bit more government control than freedom. Now, I bet, however, if we were to talk through and see everybody's scores, I doubt anybody has a score that's exactly 100, because that'd be just kind of intense, right? And so maybe tomorrow or the next day, I guess it won't be tomorrow, we'll talk about whose score was the highest and why'd you say so and whatnot. But for now, we're going to go in. Okay, so here's what we're doing with this. Most of the time, people don't want pure socialism or pure capitalism, like we already said. And so in our country, what we've done is we've created a new kind of system that blends both the best ingredients of capitalism with the best ingredients of socialism, and we call it free enterprise. And free enterprise, it's a very common type of mixed economy. It's not just a United States thing. Many countries around the world use free enterprise. And what we see is that it's usually more capitalism than it is socialism. So it's got if it was to take this survey, it would have a number that maybe it falls somewhere between like 30 and 50 or something like that. It'd be on the more capitalist side of things, but it still has ingredients that represent socialism. And what we see, one of the overall ideas of free enterprise is that we want to encourage individuals to be free and to make choices. That's a capitalist idea. But we also want the government to protect citizens, and that's a socialist idea. And so what we need to do is we need to sort of explain how we accomplish both things at the same time. Because if you're honest with yourself, you might realize that getting capitalism and socialism together, man, they're pretty different. They're pretty opposite. And so how do we make them work? And the best way that I think we can do this is by drawing a picture. And so on your handout, right here, you're going to take this and you want to flip it over. And you got some nice, wonderful space on the back. And so you're going to draw something. And you're going to draw this. Okay. So let me give you a minute here. Let me make sure you can see everything that you need to see. Hopefully you can cover all the details. Okay. So what we've got here, let's break it down. We've got three groups. We have households, and that's just basically us. We've got the government, and that's obviously the government. And then we've got businesses, and businesses are obviously just businesses. So what we're going to see is these three groups in our economy, they all interact, and there's different ways that they interact. And so we're going to start by talking about how households, again, that's us, how we interact economically with the government. And so you want to make sure you draw this arrow right here. And you want to label that arrow with the word taxes. Because one of the biggest economic ways we interact with our government is by paying them money. They take money from us all the time. And we'll talk about the different types of taxes we have in a different unit. But they take this tax money and they do stuff with it. And one of the things that we see is they maybe create public schools or public parks or public roads or a police service or military. There's all kinds of things. And we have a name for those concepts or those general things. We call those things public goods and services. So that needs to go on this arrow going from government back to households. Now, well, that's only one side of this, right? And so if we go over to the business side of things, it has the same labels on the same types of arrows. Businesses have to pay taxes to the government as well. And in return, the government gives businesses public goods and services to enjoy. So far, so good. But there's more than just this, us to government, business to government type of interactions in our economy, of course. We interact directly with businesses without the government getting involved. And so there's two ways that we get involved. And the first way is up here. The second way is down here. Let's talk about the top two arrows. Well, first of all, businesses, they give us stuff, right? We go and we purchase things. And so we call those things that we've purchased, we call them private goods and services. These are the products that we buy. We call it private because it's no longer public like we get from the government, because when you get something from a business, it's not for everybody in that society, it's just for you. So it's a private thing. Now, in order to get that stuff without just ripping it off and stealing it, you need to pay the business. And so up at the top arrow, we're going to put payment. So we give payment, they give us, products and stuff like that. Now at the bottom is the other way that we interact with businesses, and I wonder if you can guess what that other way is. I'll go ahead and tell you so there's not an awkward pause in the video. But the other way we interact with businesses is by working for them. We go get jobs. We provide our labor, which is a type of service, and we don't do that for free, obviously. We're not all volunteers. We get paid for that, and so payment is what belongs on that bottom arrow. We go to work for businesses. Businesses pay us. They give us that payment. And that's how it works. So this is free enterprise. It's a really good system. And it's kind of a cool thing to think about. Again, socialism and capitalism, they're so different that to find a way to combine them together into one system that really works, it's kind of extraordinary. And so that's why, we kind of pat ourselves on the back. So maybe at this point in the day, as you're watching the video, maybe everybody in the room right now maybe you want to pat yourself on the back and go, like that, and the sub will be like, what's going on? Go for it. Now hold on a minute. Since we drew that picture, I want to kind of use that same type of diagram to help us recollect or remind ourselves of what capitalism and socialism would look like with these same kind of diagrams. And so what we've got here is if we were to draw a diagram that looked kind of like the free enterprise diagram to represent capitalism, well, basically what you would look like is there'd be lots of household and business interaction, right? But there'd be no government interaction. There'd be no government involved. Again, that government's laissez-faire. It's out of the game. It's not interacting with us. So that's just kind of interesting. And then if we wanted to draw this kind of thing to represent socialism, it would be no interaction between us and businesses in any way. All the stuff that goes on in the economy would have to go through the government. The government would be at the heart of everything. We'd pay taxes. We would get back public goods. And we wouldn't get anything else unless the government gave it to us directly. So anyway, that was kind of a little timeout. So now that we know what free enterprise is, right? Government and businesses and us, we might want to ask ourselves, so what's our role in this system? And overall, your role as an individual in free enterprise is to simply follow your self-interest. Again, that's sort of a capitalist attitude, right? But it's more than just following your self-interest. There's a second thing you need to do. You also need to obey society's laws, and that's a socialist thing. So what this means specifically is you need to try to work hard to meet your personal needs and those of your future family, right? You want to make sure, however, at the midst of that you're submitting to the government's regulations so that you are protecting yourself and the people who live in that society alongside you. And you need to try to be entrepreneurial. That's a fancy word that basically means you want to be creative. You want to innovate. You want to create new things and invent stuff. and that will help you be a successful member of this free enterprise system. Some examples of that mean maybe you want to start a new business someday, or create a new product, and that will be nice. That will help you meet your needs and help your citizens and work well in that society. That's our role as individuals. Now, the government obviously has some important roles to do as well. And we can break this into three categories. The first category is they need to provide public goods and services. That's what we get from our tax dollars, right? We saw that on one of the arrows. So examples of that could be, they need to provide us with public schools, roads, military and police protection, safety nets, which we could also call welfare programs, help people who lose their jobs or who can't go to a job because maybe they're disabled. So that's one thing the government does. That's very good. Second thing the government does is they need to regulate businesses and use fair laws to do so. So for instance, they want to make sure that they're protecting workers. So that way things like minimum wage or safety standards at an employer's office or business or factory are in place. They need to make sure that they're protecting us as consumers as well, and they're protecting the environment. So that way, workers, buyers, and the earth itself is hopefully going to be treated well in this free enterprise economy. And then finally, they work very hard to promote a healthy economy. And again, we talk about how there's things we'll cover later in the year, but this is another big topic we're gonna jump into in the future unit. But to make a long story short now, there are things called copyrights, patents, that what those things are. They protect people's ideas and their intellectual property. They want to encourage trade and they want to encourage employment through programs that promote jobs and foreign and domestic industry. So these are things the government does to try to get the economy going in free enterprise. And so what's the result? Well, I'm glad you asked. The result is pretty straightforward. You have a coordinated sharing of the power between the individual and the government. Again, that's that capitalism, that socialism combined, working together. What this does is it creates a very strong system that takes the best ingredients from those two vastly different economic systems, and it leaves their drawbacks behind, and it just uses the best parts. So you can take, the best parts over here of socialism and leave those bad parts behind, and take the best parts of capitalism, leave those bad parts behind, and you get free enterprise, which is sort of the Goldilocks style of economics. It's not too hot, it's not too cold, it's just right. So that's it. That's our free enterprise system. It's not too bad, is it? I got to pat myself on the back like you already did. So thanks for watching, everybody. Now what you're going to do is go back to whatever you're doing with Canvas here and see what's next for you in the rest of your day. And I hope you all have a very good weekend, and go Blue Devils.